And well, with all the changes going on in the world, I'm sure our guest that is going to be joining us in just a minute has had some of these visions. Actually, she is the author of of the book. Where is the book? It's right in front of me. Angels, Aliens, and Prophecy, as well as Angels, Aliens, and Prophecy Part Two. And now the new book coming out, Symbology of the Number 13. And we're going to cover a lot today. So I'm looking forward to speaking with our guest, Betsey Lewis. She is an internationally renowned intuitive Earth mysteries investigator. She is also a radio host and continues her investigations into the true stories of ancient astronauts found in the Bible, Sanskrit texts, cave drawings, and Native American legends. Uh, One of the things that she has investigated in the past is if time jumpers exist, or are they changing timelines? Is there a message behind the crop circles? What are chemtrails? What's the dark agenda behind them? And so much more. And we're going to try to cover at least a piece of everything that she's been investigating over the next couple hours. Let's welcome our friend here, Betsey Lewis. Hi, Betsey. How are you today?
Well, good. How are you, Bernard?
It's so good to hear your voice. I welcome you to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio.
Oh, it's great to be back on your show again. Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to come on. We for our listeners, I just want to let you know we did have Betsey on the show last year when we were on the other network. So this is her first visit to Revolution Radio, and I'm really happy to have her on today. I so enjoyed our last show, and it was one of those shows that I felt like I wanted to learn more, that there was more that we needed to cover.
That's right. You know, you were just talking about President Morsi, and I made that prediction back in December of last year. I said that he was going to fall. And someone sent me an email and reminded me of that prediction. And I looked back on my website, and there it was. And I went, whoa, I did predict that for this year.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Well, for those of us, and for those of us listening, that really are just starting to get to know you today, can you share a little bit with us about where you came from, what changed, and what brought you to where you are today?
Okay, well, I'm an Idaho native, and I grew up here in Southern California. Well, I spent 20-some years in California, but I grew up in Idaho, Southern Idaho, and the paranormal has been the normal for me since I was 8 months old. It began when my parents were attending the University of Moscow, Idaho, and they were taking a trip to southern Idaho to visit my grandparents and other relatives. And they left kind of late, and they were on this highway, which really is, there's nothing up in that area at the time. This was 1950. And they had been traveling, and all of a sudden they heard this horrendous noise, a roar that came out of nowhere and shook the car. And of course, their first thought, you know, they were so frightened, they thought a plane was going to crash on them. It was right on top of them. And of course, I was just a small baby in the back in a little basket. So that was the first event. And of course, there was nothing there. When they pulled over, they got out. There was nothing around, nothing to explain the roar that descended on them. And, you know, they just dismissed it. That was the story they had always told me through the years until my uncle in 1981, 82 said, "Did your parents tell you the story?" And I said, "Yes, they told me they heard this roar and it shook the car and they thought a plane was going to crash." And he says, "Yeah, but did they tell you that they lost 2 hours in time they couldn't account for?" And I said, "No, wait a minute." This is new to me. So, yeah, that was, you know, the first experience in my life. And then 7 years later, I was walking home from school, first grade, and a UFO chased me home.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So I've had many, many things happen throughout my life. I've had many prophetic dreams and visions of events that are going to happen. A lot of them are Earth-related and Earth changes. So I know there are many things coming up for us, and I've wanted to get all this information out to everyone out there because I think we should be forewarned that these things are going to happen. It's not going to be the end of the world, but I'm saying there's going to be a lot of changes coming up. Do you feel it?
Oh gosh, yeah. As a matter of fact, it's funny you mentioned that. I just posted a video that I produced on during the weekend, and that was literally the theme of the video. Is it's going to get worse before it gets better, and we need to look
Right.
at the long road ahead and be prepared for these. I mean, I'm kind of minimizing it by calling them hiccups.
Right.
In the scheme of things, in the scheme of humanity, they're basically just hiccups because we're not. It's not going to be the end of the world. I feel that we're going through it. We're seeing it now. It's just the end of the world as we know it. And
Right.
I feel that's the where it's getting messed up, and in the translation that a lot of people are, very extreme one way or the other. It's the end of the world. No, it's not the end of the world. It's just learning a new way to live.
That's right. That's right. And I keep saying we have to human up. This time we really have to human up with all these changes and prepare for them and not panic. It's going to happen, and we chose to be here at this time, and we're going to see many of these changes. It has to be. The frequency of the earth is changing. We're changing. We're evolving, and we're going to see many things. And I'm sure many people have felt that everything changed the beginning of the year. We kept thinking that it was going to be the big change in December, with the Mayan calendar and the end of the world. But things changed the first of the year, and I'm sure a lot of people felt it. We've had some major, major earthquakes all over the world. We've had some major solar flares, and those solar flares create a geomagnetic storm on the earth, and we see the aurora borealis, but it also affects us, Bernard, and I'm sure a lot of us have felt that, sleeplessness, jittery, just anxious, irritable. We can feel that. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on. And the sun is still getting really active. On May 13th, we had 4 major X-class flares. And I think we have a major solar event coming up. I think we were forewarned about it in 1917 when the 3 children of Fatima, Portugal, were warned, starting on May 13th, and I don't think that was a coincidence. Mm-hmm. On the 13th day of the month for 6 months, ending on October 13th in 1917. And, it seems to be pointing to a solar event, and I think they were celestial beings, but I don't think they were the people they portrayed themselves. The children believe that it was the Blessed Virgin Mary, but I believe otherwise by some of the things that happened. And I don't know if you want to get into that right now. We can go on to other things, but there's just some incredible things with the number 13.
Well, actually, what I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in is I personally have I guess you could call it a belief or whatnot that many of these angelic manifestations or manifestations of gods or goddesses or whatnot are literally transdimensional and or extraterrestrial beings, and I wonder what has been your experience or what are your ideas on that? Oh, I think we lost Betsy, and Skype is trying to get her back. Speaking of solar flares, okay, let's hold on a second. Let me see if I can just add her by telephone. It might actually sound better. Let's see. Sorry about the dead air, guys. We're going to try to get Betsy back on the line and continue answering that question for us.
Lost you.
Yes, Betsy, your Skype seems to have gone out. So actually, we sound really good right now. So is this a good line to use?
Yeah, this is great.
Okay, fine. So going back to the question, it is kind of like my belief that a lot of these angelic or spiritual, don't get me wrong, I know that there's ghosts out there. I know that there are spirits and other entities floating around the ethers, but
Right.
for the gist of what we see throughout history and all of this mythology and biblical texts and whatnot, I can't help but feel that they are either extraterrestrial or transdimensional entities. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, I've always felt that. And perhaps my mother was instrumental in with her thoughts and beliefs, but she always felt that aliens were visiting us, way back. And are you still there, Bernard?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It sounded like I lost you there for a minute. But yeah, she believed in the Bible when it talks about Ezekiel and his visions of alien type people, ancient astronauts.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to the Bible and beyond. Even the pharaohs describe UFOs. And so, they've been visiting us for eons.
Absolutely.
I have no doubt.
Absolutely. I guess, is that your message machine playing tricks on us?
No, it shouldn't be. I don't have anything on this end. I don't know what that beeping. Isn't that weird? I always affect electrical things. I don't know what's going on today.
Sorry,
this is very strange.
Scott, now we're getting beeps over here.
I know. There shouldn't be anything on there that would cause that. I don't know what that could be.
Oh, well, hopefully it's just your phone saying the battery's charged.
Yeah, no, it is. It shouldn't be any problem. So, yeah, I can always change phones if there's any problem. So,
great.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Absolutely. And so, Betsey, back to what we were talking about. You were mentioning a little bit about the number 13, and I know that you have a new book coming out on the symbology of 13.
Yes.
First of all, is the book out yet, or is it being released soon?
No, it's out. It's called Mystic Revelations of 13, The Key to Earth's Destiny. And it is out on Amazon, also in Kindle and print. So they can go to Amazon and find it now. But I found some amazing, amazing things. And, I just, when the number 13 keeps coming up so many times, I think it's beyond coincidence. I really believe that there's something to it. And, I've tied all these things that have happened with number 13, especially with some of the things that have gone on through the years that are tied to extraterrestrials or UFOs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's just for me, it's a very symbolic number for the fact that we have 13 moon cycles during the year, and how nature really way of kind of speaking to us when we're looking at when we're going down that rabbit hole, so to speak.
Right. Exactly.
What is the symbology of number 13?
Well, it's interesting that the Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras said that numbers rule all things, and he believed numbers had souls and held magical powers. And I think 13 is one of those numbers, interestingly. But the number 13 can be found in symbology and goes back thousands of years. And it was for the Mayans, their calendar ended with 13 Baktun. 13 is found in the Bible. Friday the 13th is believed to be the day Jesus died on the cross.
Right.
And it also symbolizes cleansing, purity, suffering, death, the evolution of the soul, and the decoding of the human consciousness. And it's also found in everything. It's central to sacred geometry. You can find it, for example, there's 13 major joints in the body, 13 lunar cycles in a solar year. Yeah. The moon travels 13 degrees across the sky. I could just go on and on. There's just so much with it. So, and I've even found it that the Illuminati are associated with the number 13.
Absolutely, and it's funny. I was just going to mention something to that effect. How one of the myths are that the Knights Templar were, I guess, slaughtered on Friday the 13th.
Right.
And also, I can't help but throw in this whole, backwards history that we've created for ourselves, how the number 13 is considered evil and satanic. Whereas for me, I always say that this is just, the state or the elites trying to make you not look there. They want you to be afraid of 13, and it happens to be so they can use it themselves, is what I get out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I think everything has a yin-yang,
of course,
element to it, the positive, the negative poles. And I see that with the number 13, because it has been lucky. When you go back to Apollo 13, right, when it was the seventh manned mission to, in space, and the craft was launched on April 11th, 1970, at 13:13 Central Standard Time from Kennedy Space Center. And, of course, the astronauts, they had to abort their lunar landing because of an oxygen tank that exploded. And it was just strange how all these things happened, but they were able to jury-rig the system and get it all back. But, the world over, we're praying. And I think those prayers, those vibrations, that healing energy went out into the universe and probably saved their lives. They made it back. So it was lucky 13 for them.
Absolutely. And I can't help but point out, I can't help but feel that, with all these 13s, could it have been an Illuminati sacrifice,
Well, that could have been too.
The conspiracy theorist in me is like, were they trying to kill them?
Well, when you turn over the dollar bill, which is interesting, there are, 13 everywhere on the dollar bill. There's 13 leaves on the left olive branch. There's 13 berries, 13 stripes. On the middle shield, 13 arrows. On the right, 13 stars. Above the eagle's head, 13 letters in E pluribus unum. On the ribbon, 13 letters in Annuit Septus. And there are 13 blocks on this truncated pyramid. And according to Fritz Springmeier in his book, The 13 Bloodlines, which is about the Illuminati, he said that represented the 13 satanic families.
Oh, very interesting. I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say that we're seeing 13 everywhere, especially when it comes to secret societies and whatnot.
Right. And what really grabbed me was that, of course, Pope Benedict resigned. And, of course, the new Pope, March 13th, 2013, he was elected. I don't think that was a coincidence. And what's really strange about this Pope, and I think we should call him Pope 13, he selected the name Francis of Assisi, who was a 13th century saint. Mm-hmm. The date that he was elected was on March 13th, 2013, and that all totals a 13. He's 76 years old, which totals 13.
Wow.
And he's chosen some 13 things in just some of the things that he has talked about. And, I know that there's some other things that we could go into, but 13 just seems to follow him in whatever he does. And it may go back to the Fatima predictions of the children, the prophecies that they were given. And I kind of wonder about that, too. Now, a lot of people think that he might be the anti-pope. And he seems like a wonderful pope and very down-to-earth and very charismatic. Mm-hmm. But is he?
Yeah.
Is he really? Is he going to change on us and become what, because he's a Jesuit.
Yeah.
And the Jesuits are linked to a lot of dark, secret things. And some say satanic. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I have found some of their oaths that they take, and they seem very dark.
Yes, actually, I did read one of the Jesuit oaths several years ago, and it was quite appalling. Is the only word I can think of.
Right. Exactly. So it makes you wonder exactly what's going on there with that 13. And I'm sure we're going to see more things happening with the number 13 associated with this Pope coming up.
Yeah, yeah, and and going back to what you said about him being charismatic and lovable, cuddly, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
It brings me back to the 2008 election where there were people discussing, be careful with Obama. He's too nice. He's too charismatic, and now he's clamping down that leather boot on everybody. So
he's changed, hasn't he?
quite a change from Oh,
yes.
Hope. Yeah, no hope.
Right. And I've always said the leaders out there are not the leaders they pretend to be. They are, just look into their eyes. Many of them, you'll see cold, soulless eyes. They're shark eyes, I call them. And, I believe the soul is in the eyes. And, when someone is really a good human, you can tell, you can see it in their eyes, but these people have very cold eyes. They don't care about anybody or anything. They're for themselves. And
yeah, absolutely. And well, to continue this thought process, I can't help but feel what you were saying, that these leaders aren't really leaders anyway. They don't. They're not representatives of the people. They are merely, I forgot who it was that said it, it was, what's that guy's name? He was very big right now. I can't remember his name right now, but he says that that politicians are only there to represent and to protect the corporations and their profits.
That's right. Absolutely.
And we can't, a lot of people, we all blame Obama because he's the front man, but it's not him. He's literally just the manager.
Yeah, he's a puppet.
He's only the manager. He has no ability to change, even if he wanted to. I remember having debates with, other quote unquote light workers. Oh, Obama's a light worker. He's going to change things. I'm like, even if he wanted to, he can't. Even if he wanted to. There was who was a Bill Hicks that said, the first day a president is elected, they take him into a dark room and show him the Zapruder film of Kennedy's assassination and say, "You get it?"
That's right. You just hit on so many things that we've been lied to about so many things. It's smoke and mirrors out there. And, it's time. I said this is the year of revelation. A lot of things are coming out, but even more things will be coming out about what's been going on. The lies about aliens visiting us, our government's involved with some of them. There's just so much.
Yes, absolutely. Did you happen to see yesterday on Google, they were celebrating the anniversary of the Roswell event?
Oh, no, I didn't see
and
that.
If you went to the Google homepage, the search engine page, there was like this little, it was like a game. I played it for a few minutes. So, you help the alien land and, he had to ship back together. I was like, Google is doing this for what reason? Are they
exactly,
or are they trying to let us know something?
Exactly.
So we can't help but wonder what's going on there. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So, what are some of the things that you're seeing are being revealed, especially this particular year? What has really struck and caught your attention?
Well, I've been watching earthquakes. I go to the USGS site and watch earthquakes, and I post that on my website on Earth News One. And with all these strange things that have been happening, you've probably heard about all these weird booms that are heard all over the world, and especially in the United States lately, and the flashes of light that are seen that it's associated with these booms. And then there's shaking, which they claim is not earthquakes. But that's been going on all over the world. We've had these weird earthquakes in Oklahoma and just in strange places that usually don't get earthquakes. And in northern Texas, Arizona, just weird places. So there's a lot of strange things with that. And then we had animals. We had birds dropping dead out of the sky, which I believe is methane that's being released deep within the earth. and fish that were washing up, millions of them around the world on shore. So we've had that. And with the earthquakes, I think something is going to happen in Indonesia. I think there's going to be a major, major earthquake. There's been some 7.2, 7.8, but I think that area is going to be hit with just a mega earthquake. And I think that could be coming this year. Yeah.
Well, I certainly hope that people in Indonesia are prepared for something like that, better prepared than they were last time.
Well, that was it. There were so many warnings. Even with the earthquake in Japan, there were signs there. We had all those birds, the same thing, birds dropping out of the sky. There were fish dying all over the world, and there was UFOs spotted over Japan that seemed to be a warning before it happened. And, we've forgotten that. We're so involved with our world right now, our physical world, we forget that there are always signs. Mother Earth, the animals feel it, they act accordingly. So, there's many signs.
Well, we're going to talk more about that when we return from the commercial break. Join us with Betsey Lewis as we continue here on Revolution Radio.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Hey, and welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. I am speaking with Betsey Lewis, and we're having a great conversation right now on, what we left off. We were talking about different signs and how nature does speak to us. Now, Betsey, can you give us any suggestions or pointers on, I'm always one to try to, teach people methods or ways that they can, be able to be aware of nature, how to communicate with nature, and to be able to see these symbols clear. Is there something that you do or that just, that you could offer?
Well, I think we're all intuitive, and I know many people say, well, no, I'm not. I'm not intuitive. I'm not psychic. But I think we all have that power, and I think we've just all buried it. And I think if we, write down your dreams and put it out there before you go to sleep if you want to dream about certain things. I believe our spirit guides or our guardian angels, if you want to call them, they hear us. We get contacted through our dreams. I think that many times when we connect to Mother Earth and nature, when we get out there with nature and just communicate with her, talk to her, hug a tree, just get out there more, get away from all the electronics, because I think that blocks a lot of our intuitive sense. I really do.
Absolutely. I forgot who it was. I believe I read it in one of the Carlos Castaneda books, but the shaman was saying if you, just by watching the pattern of a bird's flight, you could tell the future for 100 years. I found that to be very profound. It was like, just by aligning and understanding the patterns of nature.
Right. In fact, I'm working on a new book, which I think will be out around October, about connecting with Earth and all the things that I've learned, because I grew up in, around nature and the mountains, and I just observed so much going on around me, the birds and what they were doing and the wind. I felt connected to all that. I'm thankful that I was, around that all the time. And plus, I've spent a lot of time with Native Americans, too, and vision quests and powwows and also sweat lodges. And, they're so connected with the earth. So I think ceremony is very important, too. And I think that's something else we've forgotten.
Yes, we have. We have. Unfortunately.
To honor Earth.
And I can't help but remember, back in my early years as a Catholic, as a Roman Catholic, and I loved the Mass. I thought it was so beautiful, and I loved the ceremony of it, but there was nothing spiritual about it except for the ceremonialness of it.
Right.
It was just words being said, and to me, I was more about the candles and the incense than what they were actually talking about. And And I feel that a lot of us, especially in the United States and especially here in the South where I live, they go through that ritual of going to church on Sunday and they feel that they're nourishing their soul where it's really just a social status thing, or, there's nothing really, really going. So I can relate to what you're saying in the sense of that we've forgotten ceremony, we forgot to connect, and which is why I love to promote personal spirituality. I think anybody can write their own little ceremony and go out to a tree and, plant a penny and do a prayer or whatever it is that works for you,
Right. The Indians also smudge with sage and sweetgrass. I think smoke is really important. You don't have to do that. Candles. There's just many, many things. That everything is vibration, and we've forgotten that. Everything has a frequency, and everything has a consciousness. Earth has a consciousness. She's alive. Everything is alive out there, and we just don't honor Earth anymore. We don't talk to her. Take off your shoes and run in the grass, Just feel everything. Talk to the plants. If you're growing a garden, talk to them. They hear you. Everything is, we're all connected.
It's life. It's life. It's being connected to life, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Now, to change the subject a little bit, I wanted to jump back to a little bit about 13.
Yeah.
And what is the significance of the Phoenix Lights event, where thousands of people witnessed, all these UFOs on March 13th? And how do you connect that with the Fatima event?
Well, that's really interesting because it did happen on March 13th, 1997. People were outside at the time, and they were looking for Hale-Bopp, the comet. So that's why they were outside. There were so many people that observed this, but it was a massive UFO that flew over Phoenix. It started up in northern Arizona, or maybe right into southern Nevada, and then went all the way down to, I think, the Mexican border is what they said. But so many people claimed that they had this feeling of clarity of thought, concentration, and a dramatic sense of love and connectedness to family and the world after it happened. And of course, the military was saying it was flares.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you get that feeling from flares. I really don't. It's just amazing. But what's really interesting, I had Dr. Lynn Kaiti on my show, and she's written a book called The Phoenix Lights, and she observed them and photographed them. In fact, she wanted to remain anonymous during the time because there was so much skepticism and ridicule about it. If you remember, the governor claimed that it was a hoax or something, and he even had a guy dressed up as an alien, at the news conference. Remember that? Yeah. And so, she didn't want to come forward, but she has, and it's just an amazing story of, even Indians on the reservation out there have known about these alien or these UFOs or these star beams, as they call them.
Oh, for thousands of years, absolutely. Now, let me ask you, I'm just starting to put two and two together here as we're live on the air. Now, I forgot it was about the time of Hale-Bopp. And wasn't that the same time that crazy cult tried to jump on the tail of the comet or something like that?
Yes, you're right. And
so it's funny how, and then all we heard about in the media was about the cult. We never heard anything about the Phoenix Lights.
Right, exactly. And it was the largest mass sighting of any UFO ever. It was just huge. And, I guess it was a V-shaped formation. Yep. Some said it was orbs. Some thought it was a solid craft. And what's interesting is Phoenix was selected, and I don't think that was an accident. The number 13, I think Phoenix is named after the phoenix bird, which is legendary. It goes back thousands of years in Egypt, and the Indians have the thunderbird.
Yes.
And it goes back that far, but Phoenix represents death and rebirth, and it also represents the sun.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that might be also a solar event. And then we've had some other strange things. On August 13th, 2001, one of the largest UK crop circle formations in recorded history was created on that day. And what amazed researchers about the crop formation was the 409 individual circles formed in a spiral pattern. And of course, 409 equals 13.
Oh my
it totals
God.
13.
It sure does.
And they estimate that for hoaxers, if they were going to make, they would have had to make one circle every 30 seconds during the nighttime hours to create it, which would have been impossible.
Yeah.
So, that didn't happen. And then, of course, on May 14th, just recently, or 13th, we had the 4X-class flares that fired off from the sun. And that was the same day and month as the children of Fatima first saw their visitation of the celestial being, or the Virgin Mary.
Oh, wow.
The Blessed Virgin Mary. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And the sun's been active around the 13th. We had a whole bunch of filaments forming on June 13th, and now it looks like the sun is going to do something again. There's a huge hole forming on the sun, and I think something's going to happen again on the 13th.
Oh, wow.
I really do. So if it happens, I'm really going to be scared, Bernard.
I'm like, I need to get candles.
I know. And the last visitation of the lady for the children was on October 13th of 1917. 70 to 80,000 people gathered in Fatima that day to witness a miracle that she promised the children. And it had been pouring rain all morning long. They were standing in mud and soaked, all these people. And suddenly, at solar noon, that's when she always appeared, or whenever something happened, exactly solar noon, the clouds parted, and what looked like the sun coming down from the sky towards Earth. And people, of course, were frightened. They had no idea. And all of a sudden, it started spinning and throwing off these incredible colors. And what's really strange is what people described was it was a plate of silver. It made strange and abrupt movements outside the cosmic laws. It was a clear disk. It gleamed. It stood out clearly from the sky. It had a sharp edge. It looked like a plate of dull silver. Now, does that sound like the sun?
No.
No, it doesn't. And, it sounds like a massive mothership UFO.
Yeah.
And what's really strange is that not one astronomer worldwide noticed anything unusual about the sun that day.
Huh.
It was only seen within a 14-mile radius of this town.
Now that's very interesting.
Isn't it?
That's very interesting.
I know. Yeah.
So,
and go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask that, we hear also, and, I always have to take everything with a grain of salt when it comes from NASA actually more so with NASA or the government. And they've been talking so much about preparing for a solar event that's going to knock out the grid. And I mean, we even have Michio Kaku talking about, sometime in the summer of 2013, it could very well happen that we lose the grid for, they're saying not a couple days, but a couple months.
Right. Can you imagine that?
And if that were to be, where's the energy going to come from? Where's the food going to come from? How are we going to get fed? How are we going to, except for, of course, those of us that are smart enough to have a little bit of supply to hold us over. But, I can't help but think, and forgive me if I sound macabre, but there's a part of me that says, I wish it would just happen and get it over with.
Right.
So we could learn to live in community again. And of course, you're going to have the people out there. I had an associate slash, I don't want to say friend, but someone who I knew fairly well, that a solar storm happened. This was several years ago, and they were prepared to grab the guns and run to the mountains. And
Right.
and I'm like, really? That's the first thing you think of is, that it's just all war is going to break out. You live in a rural area. That's one of the reasons why I moved to a rural area out of the big city. Because, yeah, of course, the cities are probably going to be crazy.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
yeah, Mad
absolutely.
Max
Yeah,
scenario.
exactly, exactly. I'm like, I
Right.
can I can run up to the Blue Ridge Parkway and start picking peaches and apples and go, drink water out of the river if I need to.
Hmm.
But
Now, isn't it interesting that, the rumors of our government building underground bunkers, and of course, under Denver Airport, uh, former Governor Jesse Ventura did a whole documentary on it and went there and all the strange things and people that claimed that they worked on this huge, huge project underneath the Denver airport.
yeah,
It's just massive, I guess, and what they have put underneath there. And there's just some really strange things that there's a plaque in the Denver airport. Have you ever been through there,
no,
Bernard?
I haven't. I haven't. I've seen pictures of the mural.
Mm-hmm.
I
The
don't,
mural, right.
but
Yeah, but there's a plaque there that says that it was made by the New World Order. I mean, what's that?
oh, jeez.
And there's a gargoyle in a suitcase, for decoration in there. What is that? And, of course, this mural. And I read that the artist claimed that he did it just to show, what the world would be like, the way we're headed. But I kind of wondered, why did he? It's so graphic. It shows this soldier with this machete or something in his hand, and people in like bunkers or something, and just weird things.
Well, it's actually, if we look at it, some of that stuff is already happening. I mean, we see what's going on in the Middle East and the American Empire coming through,
Right.
just slaughtering people and the drones and now drones here, which is another wonderful addition to the New World Order arsenal.
Right. Right.
It's so frustrating. I'm like, really? You think it's okay for the police to have drones to spy on you? I'm not so sure I like that.
Yeah, have you heard of the TR-3B aircraft that's supposed to be that triangle craft?
No, I have not, or at least not by name.
Well, I've heard several people talk about it. In fact, I had someone on Facebook, contact me and say that he and his wife were on a beach in South Carolina, and they watched this huge triangle craft out there over the ocean, and it just covered up stars. But he said what was interesting is that these orbs appeared, and they seemed to be attacking the triangle-shaped craft.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, whoa, that's interesting. Wow. And there's some people that believe that these are military. Our military have these, and it's called a TR-3B aircraft. But they also have this cloaking device where they can project stars underneath the bottom of it, so it looks, it just blends in,
Well, they've already announced that they have the ability to inform invisibility or whatnot. That I guess that's what it'd be, but like a hologram or something underneath it. Perhaps.
Exactly.
It's just amazing. And what amazes me and why it's so important for us to do the work that we're doing is that so many people have no clue what's going on. That this technology exists. They believe it's all sci-fi. We're living in the future. This is 2013. We are here. Welcome to the future.
Right. We're here. Yeah. I believe there's benevolent beings out there. I think we have many, many types of beings out there that are visiting us, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, whatever. They're out there. Some of them are just observing. Some are involved with our government. Some are benevolent that want to help us. In fact, I had a dream one night. Well, it wasn't really a dream. I heard this voice. I woke up in the middle of the night, and it told me that with these asteroids that have flown by Earth recently, and the meteors, like the big Russian one that, just broke windows and just did incredible damage, but didn't actually hit the city there, that they diverted they diverted these things from hitting Earth directly. And I thought that's kind of interesting.
Absolutely, I can't agree more. I mean, we've seen many video footages where extraterrestrial ships or something are knocking out missiles and
right.
and going out and saying hi to the astronauts, so to speak, on the shuttle and whatnot. But I do, again, there's back to what we started talking about at the beginning of the show is we're going through some really big upheavals, and I talk about it all the time that, this new world order, quote unquote, call them the elites, the 1%, or the psychopaths that rule the world, they're losing power because we are becoming, and I hate to sound cliche, we're waking up, we're becoming more aware, and they're losing their grasp on their power because of this. And
that's right.
And to throw this into the mix of what you were talking about, I happen also to believe that there are people that are incarnating at this time for this very purpose of protecting the planet and hopefully being the seeds of this new humanity.
Oh, right. The new children, they're beautiful new children, and some of these children are just amazing, and I'm sure you've met some of these children.
Oh, yes.
They're intuitive. They know who they are. They remember past lives. They can tell you things. They connect with spirit. They see people that have passed on, or they talk to spirits. They are savants. They are so talented in math, in art, in music, and we're seeing that more and more. And they're telepathic, which is incredible. I think these are the things of the new children, and this is where we're headed. This is where we're evolving to.
Yes, we are, definitely. And it's a good time for it.
It is. It's about time, isn't it?
It's about time. I feel like we've been stuck in the 50s since 1950,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And, the dark side, and I call them the family of dark, they're out there. They're trying to stop us. And with the foods that we eat, with the electronics, with the mind control, they're doing anything to stop us from awakening to who we really are and accepting our power again, taking back our power. And they can't do it, because we're getting help from the other side too.
Absolutely.
And things are going to change.
I recently read somewhere, and I can't. Speaking of tactics to dumb down the children, I recently read somewhere that the USDA is allowing, or is it the FDA that is now going to allow aspartame to put into milk, so the children will want to drink it more. But they don't have to be labeled. That it doesn't have to be labeled.
Insanity.
So you just have to wonder. It's okay. They're guiding this, or they're promoting this toward children to make them drink aspartame, which is probably one of the most poisonous toxic chemicals out on the food market. You can't help but wonder, do they know something? Are they intentionally trying to get these kids to really drink this poison, other than, the common idea of depopulation or illness or whatnot? Is it really to slow down their consciousness and really stop them from evolving?
I think so. I think you're right, Bernard. I think that's what's going on. We have the GMOs. We just have so much. And if people think electronics aren't affecting our brains, come on. They are. The young children, they're hooked up to whatever, electronics, their cell phones, anything that they can get their hands on. And they really are addicted to it. But it is changing the frequency in your brain. It really is. And they want that. And, right now I think our Earth has to cleanse itself. And I hate to say that. I know people don't want to hear that, that our world is going to change. But how can it continue? There's 7 billion people on the Earth right now. And something has to change in our world. If we don't, if the Earth doesn't do it herself, our waters are polluted. We've got nuclear plants all over. Fukushima, what it did with the plastic and the radiation now, we're still not hearing the full story about that. The Gulf with BP's accident, what they did to the Gulf, and we still haven't heard the truth about that, the whole truth.
Yeah.
And, it's just insane what's going on. The GMOs, like I said, what we've just done to the earth. And it's not just us. I mean, these greedy corporations out there, they just don't care. They just don't.
No, absolutely. And, isn't it, I hate to say it's very sublime how the ability to control the media to get us to voluntarily participate in the destruction of the planet, whether it be with buying more plastics, getting a new computer every year, getting a new iPhone every 2 years, this throwaway mentality, and also to accept just poison as food.
Right.
And people look at you when you say these things, and they're like, "Oh no, everyone does it." Well, everyone does it because they're it's propagandized. We've allowed this to happen. We've only got another minute before the break, but I just wanted to add to what you said about the unfortunate cleansing of the planet. And I was having a discussion with a fellow activist actually about why the United States doesn't do what Egypt did. And the main topic was that it hasn't gotten hard enough on the United States, and unfortunately, we need something something to really shake us out of our foundation in order for us to really wake up. Sometimes,
I agree.
I know that many people on the path of consciousness or political awareness.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Hello and welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. We're having a really intense discussion with my guest, Betsey Lewis. She is the author of, let's see which book we're going to talk about. How about Symbology of the Number 13? What is the title of the book, Betsey?
It's, Mystic Revelations of 13, The Key to Earth's Destiny. And then I have Angels, Aliens, and Prophecy, too. The Alien Agenda. There we go. So yeah, I have the two books out now.
Wonderful. And let's touch on that for a moment, because I wanted to ask you about the Catholic Church coming out and saying that their chief astronomer says that the extraterrestrial life could exist created by God. I love how their God created the aliens also.
Right.
But
isn't that interesting? On May 13th, 2008, the Pope's chief astronomer, Father Gabriel Funes, I think that's how it's pronounced, said intelligent beings created by God could exist in outer space. And there's been others. There was another astronomer that said that he would be delighted to baptize them, if they asked intelligent aliens. And Father Balducci, who has since passed away, was talking about ETs all the time. And what's interesting is the Vatican built this huge telescope along with the University of Arizona in southern Arizona near Tucson. It's called Lucifer, which is interesting, and it supposedly is named Lucifer. It's for Large Binocular Telescope Near Infrared Utility and Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research. Interesting. But where it was built, it was on Mount Graham, which is a holy, sacred mountain for the Apaches. They took it away from the Apaches.
Jeez. And
they've tried to sue and get it back, but of course, they can't. But there's some very strange things going on there, and they're watching for something. Is it Planet X that people have heard about, which is also known as Nibiru, which is a brown dwarf that comes through our solar system every 3,600 years? And, its magnetic pull is so great that it does disrupt the Earth's magnetic field and causes all kinds of Earth changes. And I think that's what's happening. We have all the outer planets, too, that are behaving strangely and doing weird things. So something's going on in our solar system, our cosmos right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I can't help but say that, so many of us are oblivious to what's going on in the cosmos.
Hmm.
There's this one site I like. I think it's called Space Weather. And to think about, space having weather, people think of it as a vacuum, but
Hmm.
it might be a vacuum, but there's lots of, fragments and filaments and dust and electromagnetic pulses and interconnection with the or connected relationship between planets and poles and, like you said, gravity and whatnot.
Right,
So when you
right.
put that all into, throw that into the mix, we've been pretty lucky these last several billion years. What is it, 200 billion years or whatever that this planet has been here and hasn't been smacked with a giant planet or comet or something to that effect.
Right, right.
So
I think so too. We are lucky, and I think maybe we've had a lot of help from extraterrestrials or other intelligent beings that probably terraformed this planet.
thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to move into talking about chemtrails.
Ah,
And what your ideas might be on what they're doing. We hear so much about poisoning us, world population
hmm,
reduction, alkalizing and or acidifying the soil, all of these things. And one of the recent thoughts that have been out there is to terraform the planet into corporate controlled life. We have this company out there that is creating GMO forests now that can
right.
withstand the acidifying soil that's happening with the chemtrail. And as
Hmm.
well, let's of course throw in the whole idea of what's the Morgellons filaments that they're finding as well.
Right,
So, I
right.
mean, there's just so much, and it's just so confusing to the layman, and there's so
Hmm.
much debate, and unfortunately, some of these debates get very angry, and nobody can get any word in edgewise when you go on the internet and go on these threads.
Right.
So now that we are talking to people, what are your ideas on what's going on with the chemtrails and who's doing it? What is it? What have we found? What do we know? And what are we speculating?
Well, started noticing the chemtrails in the mid '90s,
Yeah.
and a friend and I started photographing them, and they were really, really heavy then. They still are in certain days, but not as much. But it was interesting to see it, and we'd see these giant X's up there, grid marks across the sky, and it would start out as a perfectly beautiful, clear morning, and by late afternoon, these chemtrails had spread out across the sky with kind of this murky, strange clouds, just really weird clouds that just covered the sky.
Yeah.
And, you've got to wonder, is that contributing to global warming?
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of wondered about that. They claim that there's aluminum and barium in them, and these are not normal contrails. All my life I've looked up in the sky. Most people don't do that, but I've always been looking for
Mm-hmm.
UFOs. So I've looked
Mm-hmm.
up in the sky, and I've seen contrails, and they dissipate very quickly. It's water vapor.
Yes.
But these are not water vapor. I've seen strange rainbows that form around the sun from them. I've seen I would call a shadow that forms on them certain
Yeah.
times of the day. So I think it has to do with weather modification, and I think that a lot of the problems here in the West, where we're having, a lot of the trees here are dying, the pine trees, because of beetle infestation, and it's it's killed them. If we have more fires this year, and I think we are, I think the whole West is going to have more fires, but I think it's created a lot of the weird weather around the world.
Yeah.
I think we're contributing to a lot of the things happening on this planet. I'm not saying we, but I'm talking about, the powers that be out there.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
And I was very much involved in chemtrail activism a couple of years ago, and from what we've seen, having contacts around the world talking about when it's happening, taking pictures, it always seems to be in the Anglo controlled countries. Australia, Europe, United States. Not so much in Asia, not so much. I'm sure maybe by now, but back then it wasn't so much.
Right.
It was Ireland, it was England, it was the United States, it was Australia, mostly, the Anglo. And
Right.
I can't help, to think if that had to do with it, a little bit of the dumbing down of our society, quote unquote, not to sound cliche, but is that just a side effect? Are these like radical weather controlling cowboys that don't realize that there are side effects that are, affecting nature and affecting people's health and whatnot?
Oh, I think so. I think it has a lot to do with what's been going on. People are having more allergies and just problems breathing. It's just amazing what's going on. And like you said, the more gallons. Where did that come from? What is that? It just appeared. Where do these things come from? They just don't suddenly appear. Something created them. So, it kind of goes hand in hand with what's been going on with them. And some people think, I know like Nancy Leader of Zeta Talk, she's in contact with the Zetas, aliens, that they told her that the chemtrails are to cover Planet X. But I don't think so. Maybe that's part of it, but I don't think that's the full story. And I like you said, I think that it's doing something to our planet, to our weather. And, I just feel sorry for the people that are doing it. They must have children. What are they thinking?
And that seems to be one of the arguments with many people. They're like, well, here we go. Aren't they poisoning the elites also? Aren't the rich people getting hurt just as much as the younger people? And I can't help but think there's, they're eating healthier food. They probably have oxygen being pumped into their mansions, so
Right.
they're going to be better than we are on a day-to-day basis as it is. But as well, one of the things that I hypothesize on with chemtrails is that it's a certain technology that may have started to do one thing, but as the use progressed, those who are in charge of it are seeing other ways that it can be used, either to manipulate humanity, manipulate nature, sicken humanity, whatever. So I believe there's multiple layers and reasons.
Right.
Because like with any technology, the more you use it, the more you're going to learn what it can achieve and create.
Right.
But
they're supposed to have aluminum and barium in it. Now, that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the Earth. And whatever it is, if it has to do with radar, I've heard that, that might be part of it. With HARP technology, I don't know, but that's not good for anybody.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that an airplane is like airtight, because the first time I went down to see Bernard in Virginia, my plane flew right over a chemtrail being freshly sprayed.
Oh, lovely.
Really?
And it was like I got really, really close to seeing it like firsthand. I was like, yeah, I never ever thought I would see like a chemtrail like that close.
Yeah.
You usually see them from the ground. I was like, I'm really glad I'm not able to like touch it.
Well, one of the I think one of the negative aspects of living in Virginia is living so close to World Military Central. And I too, for the first time ever, saw. I remember we were coming in for a landing, and the chemtrails were being literally sprayed out of the tip of the wing, not out of the engine. It was not exhaust. Something was being sprayed out of the tip of the wing.
Sure.
And I tried to videotape it. It didn't come out too good. Unfortunately, I had a cheap little handheld camera, but I still have that clip somewhere. I don't know if I uploaded it or not, but. You have to wonder. This is a huge project. Going into commercial airlines, setting them up to spray things out of the tip of their wing. I mean, you got to imagine the money that's being paid.
Well, I was thinking, Bernard, just think how long it's been going on, and the trillions of dollars that are being spent on this project. This clandestine project, whatever it is. That money could be going for other things. And look at all the cutbacks we're having right now. Isn't that weird? And especially emergency type things that are being cut back, government type projects and people that we need, FEMA people and there's just a lot of weird things going on. But yet they can do the chemtrails every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently so. Apparently so. It's unbelievable. And you just got to wonder what is, well, when are they going to stop spraying? I can't help but wonder. When is enough going to be enough?
Right.
And how?
Yeah, and they're unmarked military planes. A lot of people say they're KC-135s or KC-10s. And, of course, I don't know that much about jets, but that's what I've read. But, you know, there's something that's going on. And you know, they can sit there and lie to us and tell it's normal contrails. Well, if it's normal contrails, then there's something wrong with our atmosphere since the 90s.
Exactly. Something must have changed over the last couple decades.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other thing. People, you know, as the younger generation is growing up, they're like, oh, well, they've had it their entire life. Well, those that are old enough to remember, this never happened in the 70s or 80s. It never did.
Right.
So,
right.
You know, when we saw a contrail, it was from a skywriter. You know, they have, you know, back when they did skywriting a lot. But
you know, do you remember the Wizard of Oz and the witch does the skywriting right on her broom?
Yes.
Well, of course, the Illuminati have always liked the Wizard of Oz, right? Dorothy and that whole thing. There's some kind of weird thing, you know, with the MK Ultra thing. And I start thinking, that's what they're doing. They're doing this thing, you know, like the witch.
Like the Wicked Witch. Exactly.
Yeah.
We had Bill Still on here a couple of years ago, and he refers to the Wizard of Oz, how it was written to be almost like I don't know if it was like an expose or something on the Federal Reserve. And he made some great connections there, and certainly there's different layers to most stories, especially something like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, right.
You know, absolutely. And so, okay, let me get really out on the fringe here. Let's go way out on the fringe.
Okay.
We more fringy than we are.
That's right.
We were talking about yesterday was the anniversary of Roswell and whatnot, and you know, there's a lot of speculation that there is a negative race of extraterrestrials that are basically, I don't want to say ruling the planet, but pulling the strings. And you know, one of the I call it modern UFO mythology, because you know there's always stories about the Zetas fighting the Pleiadians and the you know the Orions fighting with the Arcturians, and you know, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and that's the council of whatever, the Galactic Federation and whatnot. Like, they're evil, but they're not evil, and you know, you just hear it so much in the UFO community, or the you know, in the alternative research community is a better way of saying it. Right. But I was wondering, we had Laura Eisenhower on here about a month or so ago, and she talked a little bit about her great-grandfather, during the recent UFO Congress hearings that they had, you know, the citizens hearing they had, that Eisenhower wanted to attack Roswell. Right. Because of the fact that they had taken in these aliens, and these aliens were basically running the military complex, industrial.
Right.
So I was wondering, what was your take on that, and what information that you might have come across?
Well, I don't know if you watched that YouTube video of that dying CIA agent that made those claims, and he's come out. He said that he knows he's dying, and he wanted to come out with the truth, what was going on, that, you know, the aliens, they did have contact with them, and Eisenhower wanted to know what was going on with Area 51. He was going to attack Area 51, according to him. So there's some very strange things. I believe it's all true, and I think Area 51, you know, I've found in my book that there's some underground things found in the Mojave Desert and Death Valley that were found that are just incredible things that were discovered underneath there, giants and treasures, and this is real close to Area 51, and now this area has been closed down, which, you know, if there is something underneath there, I think they found it. Maybe treasures. There were things that were found before microwave was invented. So it has to be true. These stories were in the Los Angeles Times about these people, these men that investigated these tunnels that were underneath there and found this race of beings.
Yes,
You
I
know,
remember that.
right. So I think there's something amazing going on there.
Yes, there must be. There absolutely must be. Let's talk a little bit. Okay, we have seen so many times the world coming close to oblivion, close to self-destruction. So many times, like you said, asteroids have gone close. The weather, we're seeing. Basically, it looks like we're headed toward a path of self-destruction, and actually, we are headed toward a path of self-destruction.
We are.
But
we are.
every once in a while, we seem to, I don't know if I want to say get a break or get ahead. The good guys seem to get a jump. And I can't help but wonder the whole theory of timelines and where could this play into it. So many times I myself have had missing time, and I don't know if it was an abduction or whatnot. I don't remember it being an abduction, but I can't help to feel that there was like a bit of a time slip or a time jump. And did that mean that a whole new timeline was created before me or something like that? So I guess my question to you is there such thing as a time jumper, and can they change timelines?
I think so. I absolutely think so. I have always had this strange feeling about time, and I think time as we know it doesn't exist. I think the past, present, and future are happening all at once, but in different planes of existence, or if you want to call it dimensions.
Yeah.
And I think we've got all these worlds. I think our world is like an onion. There's just so many layers upon layers of dimensions and planes and interdimensional existences that it's just incredible. But I've always believed that we could time travel, and I think time travel has been invented. There was the Philadelphia story that, who knows if it's true, but it sounds very true, that our government was experimenting, and this was just during the war, when a whole ship disappeared. Yeah. And I guess there were men that were fused to the hull when it went terribly wrong, and, you know, men were dying. They were just trapped inside, you know, in the steel. Yeah. It was just horrifying. And if they were doing that during that time, just think how far they have advanced. But I think maybe CERN is working on time travel, and I think eventually we will be told that there's such a thing as time travel. What do you think?
I agree that it's probably already happening. My only concern is that what's it going to mean to time? You know, the paradoxes and whatnot that occur. You know, jumping back and forth. It could.
Right. I think things are changing all the time. You know, when you have you've been told that someone just died famous, and you remember. I know I do. I remember these people, certain people that died 10 years ago or maybe longer, but suddenly hear that they just presently died.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you remember that they did die. And you know, I think Nelson Mandela is one of them. There are just many other people that I can talk about. And, you know, when I was young, I think I did an experiment with myself. And I know this sounds really strange, but in the 60s, my mom was a smoker, and she smoked filter cigarettes. And I would always light them. I'm not a smoker, but I would light them for her. And one day I lit a cigarette for her. And what appeared on the filter was a perfect bee. And both my mom and I had the strangest feeling that I had somehow traveled back from the future to create that event. Now, doesn't that sound strange? But
sounds exciting.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've heard about John Teeter, which appeared on a blog site in the year 2000, November 2000, and he claimed he was a time traveler from the year 2036 and made some of these incredible predictions. Some of them have come true. But he said, timelines are always changing, so some of the events won't happen, of course, that happened in his timeline.
Right.
Can you imagine? And there are so many stories of people disappearing in other times, and then maybe just walking down the street and just being transported to the 1800s and then coming back. And how is that possible? There's got to be these stargates, these openings, these vortexes.
Time portals or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. And you see it all the time on the internet where you find pictures of people who are presently alive showing up in Civil War era photographs or something like that.
Right. And there's just so many, different theories about it, too, that, in fact, our physicists have discovered certain things. There was Hugh Everett III, who proposed the many worlds or parallel worlds theory of quantum physics, and many scientists believe that. He didn't prove it, but there has been different experiments, like they used these photons on a screen,
mm-hmm.
and they fired two of them. I guess let's see, they fired two of them, but what happened when they examined this screen, three appeared. Where did the third one form?
Mm-hmm.
So they were left scratching their heads about this wave-like interference. And there's other experiments that they have done that just, prove that there's time as we know it doesn't really exist.
Absolutely. And there's the other recent experiment in teleportation where they literally teleported a molecule from one side of a room to another.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's so much to that, and I've always felt that. I've had dreams about, time, and that maybe when we die, we're focused in this world now, this timeline. But when we die, maybe we can focus on another event. Maybe we can come back in this timeline again and redo it.
Right.
When you have that feeling of deja vu, it's happened before, maybe it has.
Maybe.
And you've just changed it a few times or did something differently, but maybe you've played out this life many times. Can you imagine?
I don't know if I like that, but yeah, I can imagine. All of these topics that we're discussing, especially when it comes to time travel or things like just technology in general, I think what's the most frustrating thing for me is that all of this wonderful, a great example would be like Tesla energy.
Mm-hmm.
All of this information is suppressed. It is being held back. It's not being released to benefit humanity. And I call them the dark lighters that are the ones that have this information, and what a horrible pair of hands to have it in. It's
right.
I feel that this will be a part of the new paradigm or the evolution of humanity, is that we're going to come back into balance, and this information will be public knowledge. I mean, it seems to be a huge campaign among activism about free education, and everything should be public knowledge, transparency in government and whatnot. But what about transparency in technology? And military technology is going to be the next one, I feel. So
Right.
Hopefully we'll start to see some of these things taking place. If not in my lifetime, hopefully for the next generation and the ones coming after us. It's not... well, actually, you have... we have to take a break in just a minute. But when we come back, I can't believe the show's gone by already.
I know.
I love talking to you. It's like, geez.
Well, thank you. You too.
I really do. But when we go, we're going to go on the break in just about 45 seconds. But when we return, I wanted to ask you about the message that you were given from your UFO encounter, and perhaps some things that we can do presently to either speed up the process of the new paradigm, the happy ending versus the birthing that we're going through, which is painful and so much and full of so much loss and frustration and anxiety and outrage and whatnot. But maybe we can go into a little bit again the message you got and what we can do either physically, spiritually, metaphysically to kind of help things along. This is Bernard Alvarez. I'm speaking with Betsey Lewis. She is the author of. Oh, right back. Find out.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Bernard Show. I have Betsey Lewis with me. She is the author of Mystic Revelations of 13, The Keys to Earth Destiny, and the Angels, Aliens, and Prophecy series, book 1 and 2. Welcome back, Betsey.
Thank you.
We before the break, I wanted to ask you one of the things that you speak about in your book is a message that you received during your UFO encounter. And I was hoping that you could share that with us here.
Well, when I was 7, it happened after my second event, my UFO, when I was chased by this UFO, that I started having dreams of Earth changes, major Earth changes, and these were recurring dreams over and over. I dreamed of the same thing, earthquakes, huge earthquakes, and tsunamis and volcanoes going off. And I was always older. I was like an adult, not a child in these dreams, which was very strange that I would see myself that way. But I felt that there was a message given to me that erased from my memory until later in my life. And I feel that all these things that are coming to me, that I'm writing about 13 and events that are going to happen, are part of it, that I think we have a new race that will be coming in the future. I think a lot of these ETs are creating alien-human hybrids, and I think the new race that will be on this planet will be a lot different. They'll be telepathic. They will learn to live in harmony with Earth. I think we've got a whole beautiful world ahead of us. But there are going to be some major, major changes like you talked about. And I think we have to go through it. The birth pains.
Yeah. Yes. To compare notes on visions. I love having someone who has visions and has had paranormal experiences. Because I remember when I had my first, let's say my first spiritual awakening. I think I've had a couple in this lifetime. But one of the visions that I was given, it was kind of like a spontaneous out-of-body experience. Nothing particular. I was at home cleaning one day. I looked out the window, and I was literally sucked into another world. And I saw myself, again, like you, older. I saw myself as a long gray hair, type person, living in the mountains. This is way before I decided to move or even thought about moving to the mountains. I loved the big city back then. But living in the mountains, sitting underneath a tree, teaching children lessons on how to align with nature, how to work with nature, just teaching. I knew I was teaching something to do with nature. And then I remember coming back to my body and seeing my next door neighbor was walking outside, and she was pregnant at the time. And something inside of me said that child is not going to live to see this. That she is going to be the last generation. I don't know what that meant. I don't know if that meant the type of child or whatnot. But it was a very impending feeling. It was like she's not going to make it. She's not going to see this transition. It was a very strange feeling. But again, it applied to the entire generation. And I can't help but feel that was the last generation of this particular social paradigm. That it's going to get really bad, that it's going to get much worse before it gets better, like we talked about. And you talk about, and I always talk about the hope associated with this and the good news. of
Right.
where we're headed. And you mentioned it before, a much more peaceful type of living situation and social community. And I can't help but wonder what. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately and contemplating the current situation and dealing and embracing the fact that we do have these elites, we do have the dark lighters, we have dark workers, however we want to call it, and what is their place going to be in all of this? Is there going to be a spiritual awakening for them? Is there going to be, are we going to round them all up and put them into prisons? Are we going to put them in a rocket and send them off to another planet? You know,
Right.
so again, I don't have the answers. I just have been thinking about this, and I'm like, we have to. For me, I feel that we have to work with all of humanity and figure this out together. And I just can't help but wonder: are they going to push us to the brink of destruction, where it's like, okay, they're ready to compromise now, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I have all the answers. I wish I did.
Right?
But, I always felt that Creator would not allow all the evil that is continuing, with their destructive ways and their dark ways of control. It's all about control and power. And I just don't think they can exist. And I think there are the benevolent beings out there that are helping us right now. And many of the millions of people that have been abducted, and according to polls, close to 8 million people have been abducted in the United States alone. And I feel that we've all been given messages. And a lot of these messages that I've read in many of these books and many of these famous abductee or contactee stories, that these aliens, they are here to help us, and they watch over us, and they say that the human form is dying, that we are dying, and that's why they're creating the alien-human hybrids.
My. And
what do you think?
I do see an evolutionary process taking place. But I can't help but wonder, because we've heard about in history where we have had alien human hybrids. We just had a guest on last week talking about the Nephilim.
Mm-hmm.
And so if this has been going on throughout history, and we always hear so much about the strands of DNA that we have that aren't being used, and I can't help but wonder if we've already been transformed, and they're just kind of catalyzing or the catalyst to help get all of this moving again, to get the all the strands of DNA working again, to get our pineal glands working optimally again. So I'm kind of like, we already are the aliens.
Right. You are. I think we do have alien DNA in us, absolutely. And, listening to you, Bernard, I can tell how, evolved you are and spiritual you are. It's, I got chills when you told me that story about your dream and your vision. That's just incredible. So I do get that feeling. And, many of us are getting these messages. But one of the famous abductee contactee stories, which is Betty, Andreas, and Luca, her husband, was also abducted by the Greys, and they were the elders. They call themselves the Watchers, the Guardians, and they watch everything that we do, supposedly. But Betty's husband, Bob, was asked about evil. Why does it exist? And he replied that those who create evil serve a purpose to help the righteous advance. It's all part of the life cycle. And everyone on this plane of existence has the ability to do evil, but those who don't, those who stop evil, those who overcome evil, advance and gain tremendously in the next realm. Everything in our reality is either positive or negative, light and darkness, hot and cold, evil versus good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a free will planet, and we have choices.
Yes, we certainly do. And I can't help but think that or feel that we are we are going to have these evil things to be the catalyst to move us and kind of propel us into the right direction, unfortunately.
Right.
Speaking of these messages that people are getting, I had my first message when I was about 22 years old, had my first contactee experience. And, here, of course, being 22, it was, it only happened to me. I'm special.
Right.
It's like, no one else has had this. And over the years, as I've been investigating and literally speaking with so many of you who have gone through this process and have gone through I don't want to say the awakening because I feel that might be something different, but the message that's being given universally to
Right.
everybody, and it's the same message. And not only that, I can't help but notice that it's always people that have either had it very rough or have been. I mean, for me, I was very materialistic. I was very conceited, self-centered. South Beach, party boy type, person back in the day. And it was that moment of, oh my gosh, I was such a rotten person. That there was when that happened was I feel when I had the ability to communicate and have that contact experience, and it seems to be a constant pattern with people. So I'm agreeing with what you're saying, that it's that darkness that helps us to propel and evolve into that to transcend evil, I guess is a good way of saying it.
Bob was also asked if there will ever be an end to evil, and he said that there will come a time when evil will be wiped out, but not for a long time. We have a long way to go. And, I think that's true, but I think we can change anything, like I said. Timelines are being changed. If we come together as a group, we're just not united like we should be, and I think the dark side, the family of dark, want us to be, just totally separated and not united. Because when we're united, we're stronger. We have the power. We can create new things. We can change timelines. I believe we can dream a new world into being. Of course, the indigenous people believe that too. And I think it's absolutely true that we can do that.
Oh, absolutely. And, speaking of the indigenous, I remember, we were talking a little bit earlier about ceremony and how well, a good example is the Hopi go into ceremony for like a month or 20 days out of the year. And I can't help, nobody knows what goes in during those ceremonies except for those that are there. But I can't help but imagine them doing what you just said, dreaming the new world into being.
Right.
And how how those ceremonies are probably helping to propagate or help speed up that process, so to speak.
I know we were talking about vibratory rate, vibrations. We are a frequency. We're vibrating, and of course, when we put different things in our system, like alcohol and drugs, that lowers our vibration rate, and that's all bad. The normal human rate is 62 to 68 megahertz, and cancer begins at 42 hertz and death at 25 megahertz. So the negative planners out there want to lower our megahertz, and so we've got to change that. We've got to start eating better. We've got to start taking care of our bodies. We've got to connect with Earth again. We can all start doing that, and it's going to make a huge change in the world. Because the planet feels us. She does, and we're just a mirror of what's going on. It mirrors right back into the Earth everything, and with Dr. Emoto, with his experiments with crystals, it was proven that, when you have bad or negative thoughts, you can make water crystals turn ugly and deformed. And when you think beautiful and positive and incredible thoughts, you get perfect formed water crystals. So, we have the power.
Absolutely. And the good news is we're also getting help. You know, we're getting help,
Right.
and I look forward to the day when this becomes a mainstream discussion. Hopefully, we'll have better media by then. But or
Right.
actually, I'd like to think we're building the new media. You know, people like
Mhm.
myself and Revolution Radio and yourself and the Global Illumination Council and whatnot. We're trying to really build the new media for the new paradigm,
Mhm.
and ignoring the mainstream, I feel, has a lot to do with it. You know, I
I,
find that the more, and it's so easy to get sucked back in. You know, I
right.
find.
Right. I just hope we can continue being this open and having free speech out there, because a lot of our rights are being taken away from us right now, and which is a little scary. You know, I just hope there won't be a time where we're all going to be silenced. You know what I'm saying, Bernard?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, I have to agree. I don't know if you know who the author Naomi Wolf is, but she's very much about speaking on fascism and speaking on the police state that the United States has
Mhm.
become.
Mhm.
And somebody asked her, "Well, when are you going to stop speaking out?" She goes, "When they start arresting people like myself." And
Right.
unfortunately, I have to agree. You know, when it comes to the point when I see my colleagues being shut down and being tortured or being taken off the FEMA camps, whatever the scenario,
Mhm.
that'll be the time where I'm like, okay, now it's time to start, you know, working on my garden. You know,
Right. Right. Exactly.
gonna go connect
Right.
with her now. You know, but and it's hard. It's really hard,
Mhm.
especially for those of us that. And one of the reasons why I enjoy having you on the show so much is that you and I work both the spiritual and the activist aspect of it. You know,
Mhm.
we speak on not only evolving humanity, but what's and uncovering
Right.
the ugliness of what's going on.
Mhm.
And it seems, you know, I call it the zit of humanity. We have to pop that zit and clean it out and
Great analogy, Bernard.
get it out there and let it start healing.
Right.
Really is a big
Mhm.
blemish.
It is. It is. You know, there's many predictions about a civil war coming to this country again. You know, and I know many people are unhappy. You know, with the gun situation, and you know, I think all these situations that happen, we're meant to bring about these things. I don't think there's any accident with all these things that we've been seeing. You know, like the Sandy Hook event,
Right.
which totals 13 on that day.
Yeah.
I don't know. There were some really dark things that happened there, and I think it wasn't an accident. It was all meant to take more of our rights away.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the false
Mm.
flag events that are going on, and look
Mhm.
at Boston. Uh,
Mhm.
uh,
Right.
you know, one or two people got killed, I believe. I mean, you know, every death is
Right.
horrible. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but over the death of a couple people, they're going to create a police state in one city and shut it down.
Mhm. Mhm. It started with 9/11, right?
Yeah.
And now people, you know, families can't greet their loved ones coming off the plane. You know, we're separated there. They are. They're trying to create a chasm between families and people, and and they're trying to confuse us. They're trying to anger us. They're doing that. That's what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, speaking on that, and this is a topic I bring up very often on the show, is the idea that they are creating outrage.
Mhm.
They create anger, and
Sure.
unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of anger being spit back at them. And you know, a good example is some of the alternative media people out there are screaming obscenities at, you know, the NWO,
Oh,
the elites,
right.
and
Yeah.
it goes right back to what you were saying about the vibration and
Mhm.
lowering the vibration. And you know, what's that say? You know, you're not going to beat them doing the same thing they did. You know,
Right.
getting angry and
Mhm.
getting outraged. Yes, absolutely. We have emotions. We have to let them work through. We have to allow ourselves to feel the outrage. But when we react to it, in other words, you know, uh, starting a war, you know, is a good
Mhm.
example. It's unwinnable when you're using the same tactic. So, you know, I
Yeah.
always say just go filter it, go through it, get angry, and just move on, because we have much more important work than feeling angry at the elites all the time.
Right. Yeah, Sandy Hook was on December 14th, 2012, and you total up those numbers, it equals 13.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is that a coincidence? I don't know. I don't think so. What do you think, Bernard?
Absolutely
It's
not.
just too weird. And, I've found with 13, when you put 1 and 3 together equals a B, and we've got Barack Obama, we've got Biden, we've got the Bushes,
Oh, wow.
Boehner, right? Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe not.
I wonder who's next.
Yeah, right. And of course, they're all supposed to be related to the New World Order, the Illuminati, and so it makes you wonder. I'm not saying I know for sure, but when I see all these coincidences, I kind of go, and the things that are happening too, you just have to wonder.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, if you look at the Supreme Court, just a good example. One of my big arguments, we only have a couple more minutes, but I don't think I've ever said this on the radio show, so I want to put it out there, is one of the, I should say, letdowns that I have or frustrations I have with the LGBT community is that they're so pro-Obama and pro-this because of the gay marriage situation.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile, while that's going on, they're taking away the civil rights for elections. They're taking away the rights for people to sue the pharmaceutical companies. So here we are. They're throwing the LGBT people a crumb, and then the whole world is supposed to jump up and celebrate. While they're, what did they say? Always look at the other hand. What's the other hand doing?
Right.
And it just gets so frustrating because of the blindness of, okay, so you get gay rights. How is that going to be helpful living in a police state? So,
Right.
You can be with whoever you want to be, but this issue, even though, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great thing. I think it's wonderful. I support it.
Sure.
Of course people want to get married and have the rights that everybody has.
Everybody should. Yeah.
But
we're all human. We're all here.
It's a human right. That's not a civil right. That should be,
right.
That should be going unsaid. But
but the day that we all come together and we respect each other's views and political differences and religious differences, and that'll be the day that wars stop. That will be the day that we all unite. And I think we've got a long way to go. Look at the Mideast and everything going over there. All the Civil War stuff going on. It's just insanity. It really is.
It really is. And if anything, we have to look at it in a positive sense of the uprisings, at least. So thank goodness for that. People are uniting in that sense, even though it will eventually. It's going to invoke the wrath of the empire, for lack of a better term. But let's see what happens from there.
It seems like when you cut off the head of one, you've got another one that springs up, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Betsey, we're getting to the last couple minutes, and I wanted you to be able to share with us a little bit about your radio show.
Great.
The radio show, where can people find you and keep up to date with the work that you're doing?
Well, my show is usually on Wednesdays, and sometimes I've got 2 shows this week, Wednesday and Thursday. I've got Dr. Artie Clark, Six Killer Clark, who talks about the star people and all the stories she's gathered in the last 40 years on Native Americans and their connection to extraterrestrials. It's going to be a great show. That's on Thursday. But I've had the show for 4 years, and it's called Rainbow Vision, and they can just go to blogtalkradio.com/Rainbow Vision.
Oh.
Or you can go to my website, which is BetseyLewis.com, and that's Betsey, Betsey, Lewis, Lewis. And you can click on my Earth News to find out what's going on around the world, earthquakes. My predictions are on there. You can find everything, my books.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Very, very good. And of course, you're always on Facebook. And
right.
And do you share the archives of your radio shows on your Facebook page?
I do, or they can listen, right after the show's done. It's archived, and, it's the same link, so they can go right to all my archive shows.
Wonderful, wonderful. And the next book you're working on is what's it going to be on?
Well, it's about the Earth and all the things that I've discovered about Earth energy, the Native Americans that I've worked with, some incredible spiritual teachers, Corbin Harney and Ed McGaw Eagleman, and so there's just some great stuff about time travel, a little bit about time travel, not too much, but stargates and, sacred places like Mount Shasta and all over the world. So
great.
it's going to have some great stuff in it.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I look forward to that.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much, Bernard. You're just a great host. And, a very spiritual person, I can tell.
Oh, thank you very, very much. Thank you for joining us today, Betsey.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners, we got to call it a week. You can find out more about me and follow my work at the G.I.C.org. Next week is going to be just open talk. I haven't booked anyone, so I just want to talk. Later this month, we have Miriam Delicato will be joining us. Speaking of time of, I forgot, but basically kind of what we're talking about here. I love having Miriam on the show, so look forward to that. As well, we also have Micah Hanks will be joining us, talking to us again about UFOs. So we are going to have a very fun-filled month here on Revolution Radio. As well, you can find me on GIC TV this month, July 18th. We're going to be doing a special live broadcast with activist and comedian Lee Camp. Will be joining us on July 18th from 4 p.m. Eastern Time to 4:30. And as usual, you can find all of our good stuff archives at youtube.com/justBernard. Have a wonderful week, everyone. We look forward to seeing you and speaking with you next week. We love you. Bye-bye.
Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.